Good evening, everyone. This is Financial Literacy 101. So today I want to talk about a topic that's non-financial related in some sense of the matter. And sometimes I have these conversations. I think they're very important to have on any platform. But I know a lot of times people would like for me to go into a sense of that when we talk about police and we talk about law enforcement, it's always race related. I would like to change the narrative. I would like to change the perspective about police and the way they interact inside of the communities they actually police. So on most police cars, you see serve and protect. That's kind of their duties. That's kind of their job. That's kind of their mantra. That's the, slogan or the creed, quote unquote, which they live by. And we understand that majority of law enforcement and police in America is majority white, okay? Majority of police officers in America are majority white. No one's going to argue that. We understand this. But we also understand that there are white Hispanics, non-white Hispanics, also brown Hispanics, and also African Americans and some Asians. Now, does the police force of any state or even federal police, whether it be FBI, CIA, Department of Justice, Department of Defense, do any of those numbers actually, give you the account of the number of demographics in the United States? So basically what I'm saying is there 13.4%, okay, is it 13.4% police officers in America that are Black? Let's just keep it real. In America, African Americans, aka Black, aka foundational Black Americans, represent 13.4% of the population. So the question is, nationwide, do we represent 13.4% of police, of law enforcement, of federal organizations like the FBI, the CIA? Do we, or Homeland Defense? Do we represent that 13.4%? I'm getting somewhere here because I want to raise the question, because some of you the reason why, we don't represent 13.4% is because over policing of Black communities, we've been dispersed, we're being marginalized, we're being criminalized. Innocent people are going to jail that look like you and I. I understand all of those things. But there's one thing that I really haven't heard people speak about in this sort of perspective. When we talk about police and we talk about law enforcement, the first question when it comes to race is, are all non-Black police officers racist? Like literally racist. Now, there are some who will show you by their actions. Some of them will show you by their posts on their social media feeds. But then there are some who are racist that won't show you anything. But then the question still remains, are all non-Black police officers racist? Because we understand there's a lot of racist Asian people towards Blacks, whether it be in America, the UK, or even in Africa, and especially in countries like China. When I was in Korea, did I ever experience racism? Believe it or not, I was in Korea for 4 years of my life. I never experienced what I would call racism, but I did experience discrimination. And I say that with a grain of salt only because I'm unclear if it was because I was Black or because I was American. Now, the reason why I say that, when I was in Japan for a year and a half, I experienced discrimination because I was not Yakuza. I was not part of the Japanese mafia. And the reason why I say that, I was going to some club that was it was playing hip hop music. And so hey, man, let's go in there. So all of us, guys, we had white guys and Black guys with us. We were all in the military. And they said, no. And then we were like, nah, man, let us in. You can't, we're thinking with our American brains, but in other countries, they can actually discriminate. But a gentleman of Japanese descent walked past and he said, hey, man, you don't want to go in there anyway. I said, why? He said, the Yakuza owns that club. That's a Japanese mafia. You don't want to go in there. And we was like, oh, not that we know too much about it, but we knew enough to keep walking. So the point I'm making here is, can you prove that all police are racist? And listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I am not taking up for the police. I am not. But I think we have to look at a different perspective. Then the other question would be is the police officers in your neighborhood, the ones who police your neighborhood, do they look at you as criminals? Do they patrol? Listen, do they patrol your neighborhood or do they stroll your neighborhood? See, I know exactly what the issue is. Or no, excuse me. Let me refrain from that. I know one problem of the many. Have you noticed that most law enforcement do not live in proximity of the neighborhoods that they police? One. Two, most police officers are non-African American. They do not represent the population directly reflected inside of those law enforcement jobs. So what am I talking about? I want you to think about this. As African Americans, we speak differently. We have different mannerisms. We have different body language. We communicate totally different. Now, this only goes for those police officers who are not racist, but they may have bias. They may have implicit bias. But this is important to really look at because when I looked around my neighborhood, I'm from Southeast DC, and we had Black police officers. And when I looked at that Black police officer, I didn't look at him as a police officer at first. I said, look at that Black dude who's a cop. But when I looked at a white police officer, I said, look at that cop over there. He probably racist as hell. Automatically stereotyping him because he was policing and not patrolling or strolling through my neighborhood. There's a flip side to this as well. Police officer has this energy, this aura around them, as in, don't approach me. See, if you're policing a neighborhood, if you're policing a community, and you want people to trust you, you want people to come to you in open arms and to accept into their neighborhood, then the police have to do a better job as instead of policing their neighborhood is getting to know their neighborhood. Have you noticed a lot of videos of police officers, mostly Black? There was a few white ones too, to be honest. There was a few white ones too that go inside the communities that they police and play sports and do certain things with the community right then and there in their police uniforms, kind of diffusing and debunking a lot of stereotypes and a lot of biases. So have you noticed that when you live in proximity of people, there's some sort of common knowledge. There's this thing called culture that you guys have, that you develop, but with distance breeds fear. So when people don't live with you, when they don't eat with you, when they don't talk with you, when they don't walk with you, when they don't play sports with you, but they don't have different activities with you, have you noticed that there's a distance in so many things? The cultural distance as far as understanding and comprehension of how people naturally act in their own community. See, we understand that there is an implicit bias that African American men are aggressive, that we are violent, and that why not say it? 9 out of 10 of us are criminals of some sort, or we have a criminal history. And I'm not getting into all the disparities that actually cause a lot of those things to happen, but rather I want to look at a narrative, another perspective of how that I believe that we can bridge the gap. Now, I'm not telling people to go out and have your Black kids for white officers to be their role model. I'm not saying all of that. But I think that if we change the narrative just a little bit to understand that they don't understand us and we don't understand them. Now, this has nothing to do with police shootings, police brutality, police murdering us. It has nothing to do with that. I am talking about simply the understanding of the proximity of the police officers not living close or near the communities that they actually police, that they actually patrol. Because have you noticed, just like any other group, we as African Americans, we have a certain lingo, we have a certain flavor, we have a certain swag that we go about certain things, and we can pick up on different body languages and cues. So if majority of officers in America are white, and then you have non-black officers patrolling black neighborhoods, there's going to be a lot of underlying friction. There's going to be a lot of miscommunication. There's going to be a lot of misunderstanding. So there's a lot of uncomfortable and difficult conversations that I believe that we all need to have. I believe that police stations, police officers need to hold town halls to get to know the people that live in that community. You know that guy that you shot last week, did you know he was going to Scarlet? He was going to school on a full ride because he was a valedictorian. Did you know that? Oh, well, you know, he wasn't reaching. He was trying to untuck his shirt. I mean, simple things of body language, proximity, understanding the culture, how we respond to certain things. A lot of these things are just misunderstandings. Now, granted, I'm giving no police officer a pass if he's a racist or he discriminated upon us or he racially profiled or he shot and killed an unarmed black man, woman, or child. No, I'm saying a lot of these incidentals, a lot of these situations, a lot of these incidents probably can be solved by us meeting and talking and understanding one another. Understanding where we come versus where they come from. Think about it like this. Most police officers that are white, in my opinion, from what I know, don't have black friends, don't hang around black people. So automatically, there's some stereotypes. Automatically, there are some biases. Automatically, there is friction. There's a God, there's a wall, there's a misunderstanding of culture, there's a misunderstanding of language, body language. There's so many misunderstandings that if you want to police a community for their protection and your mantra, your slogan, okay, your creed is to protect and serve. Why is it that black communities do not feel protected? And the only thing that police officers will, what we know, serve us as jail sentencing and death and brutality. I believe that a lot of these things that we endure as African Americans and black people in America is not all by our own doing, but it's by misunderstanding and the proximity and distance of those who police us in our community. See, I believe that there needs to be more black law enforcement. I remember as a teenager, me and another buddy, we were hooking school. True story. We were hooking school. And there was this is in Washington, D.C. We were hooking school. We was on these back stairs of this building. And we was about to partake in some ganja, some marijuana. But as we was about to spark up, as we was about to start smoking, two police officers who knew about this hiding spot that everybody went to there, which we didn't know about, came and saw us red-handed. So the white police officer, he acted as though we were like, oh, yeah, we were committing a crime at the time, yes. But it was more like we were like hardened criminals who just ran away, from prison or something. So they confiscated our marijuana. We had handcuffs, and the black police was like, hey, man, listen, they did some kids, being dumb, smoking weed, man. This, and he let us go, basically. And what's funny is what I've learned over the course of time, that white police officer does the same to teenage whites as well. They let them go when they have nonviolent crimes or they have something petty as marijuana on them, because they are from that culture. They understand their upbringing. They understand their community. So again, I believe that a lot of things that occur to us as black people when it comes to non-black police officer, when you take away racism, discrimination, and stereotypes, a lot of it is just not knowing one another. Have you ever just thought about that? They don't know us. They don't understand us. See, and some people may think that I'm taking up for the police. I'm not. Personally, I don't know any police officer personally. I do not. I don't correspond with one. I'm not a pen pal with one. I don't email one. I don't stop them on the road and talk to them. I do not. But I had to talk about this because automatically when we input race, we say, oh, police officers are racist. All police officers aren't racist. I believe that everyone, regardless if you're part of law enforcement or not, you have biases and you have stereotypes. The only thing that you can control in an incident that you are encountering a law enforcement agent is your own actions. Unfortunately, the reactions of a black person versus a white person are very, very different. I know you guys seen videos where white people who have been pulled over act total fool. I can't believe you pulling me over. This is some bullshit. Now, you know, the first thing you said when you saw that video is if that person was black, they'd be shot or be taken to jail. And me, I will agree with you. So we do have to govern ourselves differently, right? The stereotypes of black people getting pulled over were automatically emotional. See, I used to say this thing to me is anytime I got pulled over, which has been a very, very long time, is that I drive to arrive. So whatever occurs during that drive, I need to make sure that I arrive at the destination that I set out to go. And a lot of us, we understand that being pulled over by the police or being stopped by the police is a huge inconvenience. But the first thing I ask myself is, what have I done for this police officer to pull me over? Sometimes I was totally innocent. Sometimes I was speeding. Let's talk about the times that I was innocent, where I was going 35 into 35 miles per hour. But I had a nice car in a neighborhood that was majority white. Police pulls me over and he asks me, he says, how you doing today? I said, I'm doing well. Now, my body language, my body position, I'm in my vehicle, I have my steering wheel, and I'm talking to him like this, okay? Both hands up here on the steering wheel, I'm talking to him like this to the side. He said, so where are you going today? And I said, excuse me? I didn't say, nah, nigga, what you talking about? I didn't do that. I didn't do that, okay? We have to know when to turn it on and when to turn it off, but you are free to respond the way you want. Just understand the climate and environment that you're in. That which you must take note of. So here I am. I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, where are you going to? I said, I'm going and running some errands. He said, are some of these errands in this neighborhood? I said, no, none of my errands are in my neighborhood. He said, oh, so you live in this neighborhood? I said, yes. So I had to take a deep breath because, you know that moment where you know you're about to just like go ham on somebody? I said, officer, listen, hopefully you're not racially profiling me. I live in this neighborhood. I don't have to give you any other information than that. If you stop me because you're racial profile, I'm going to have to take down your badge and number and actually report you. He said, oh, no, sir, there's been some, would-be characters in the area. Sorry for bothering you. He went on his way. Now, if I would have acted fool, because when he frustrated me, because he did racially profile me, tell me where you think I would have been. My thoughts are in the cemetery or in jail. Is it wrong that black people have to conduct their behavior differently than white? Yes. We understand that justice in America is not equal. But again, the perspective and the narrative that you must keep in the back of your head is he does not know you. He doesn't understand our culture. Because if you've ever been pulled over by a black police officer, it's totally different. The language is totally different. Even if that black police officer is being totally professional, because I've been pulled over by a state trooper before. He's like, "Am I ready for your license registration?" I was like, "What am I going to talk about? Give me 1 second." He went back to his car, ran my tags. Didn't even tell me why he pulled me over. He came back, pulled you over because you were speeding. You were doing 75 and a 70. I was like, "Well, yeah, you're right. I'm definitely going 75. Everybody does 75. He said, you're still breaking the law, correct?" I did. He said, "All right, I'm going to give you off on a warning." I said, "Oh, well, thank you." It was totally like that. Like he was just a police officer. Like I saw him as a black man. I was like, "Hey man, what's going on? Give me license registration." It was none of that. But there's been other times where I've had that cultural link to a police officer. I've never had that with a white police officer. I've had that with a black police officer. He said, "Hey man, listen, man, you're speeding through here. It's your turn to get your ticket." That's what he said. "It's your turn to get your ticket." He went back, ran my tag. He said, "You got no warrants, man. Hey, enjoy the rest of your day." Two different experiences, one race. But the point is, regardless, there's a cultural dislink. There's a cultural disconnection because culturally we understand each other as black people. Doesn't matter if you're from the South or if you're from the North. There's this energy, there's this vibe, there's this connection. We understand one another regardless if we're not from the same place. And you have to understand that whites have that same connection. And unfortunately, they are the majority. They have a larger population than African Americans. Here's something I want to point out as well. Stop calling yourself minorities. My brother pointed out to me that, have you noticed that Jewish people do not call themselves minority? East Indian people do not call themselves minority because they understand that the word minority, the root word of minority, is minor. And if you guys know anything about history of black people being patted on the head or rubbed on the head, there's two things. One is they rub us on the head because they think we're their pets. Two, some of them believe that it's good luck. So let's get out of the narrative of minority. Somebody say as minorities, no. I want you to start saying what you are. I consider myself a foundational black American. If you consider yourself African American or a regular black person, then do so. But let's get rid of the minority thing. Let's get rid of the people of color thing. But hopefully I want you guys to understand this perspective of my narrative of the proximity and distance of police officers that are non-black that police black communities. I understand that there's racist cops. I understand that there's racist and discriminatory law enforcement agents. But I can't even believe that each and every one of them are racist. That's unimaginable to me, because then that will hold true that every black person is a criminal, that every black person is a murderer, that every black person is a robber or someone who steals or does drugs. So we got to get out this narrative that all cops are racist. Because here's the thing, and I don't know if you guys experience this, but this is how I am whenever I get pulled over. And this for some context, I'll tell you, the last time I've been pulled over and got a ticket was like 15 years ago. So let me say this. If you believe that all cops are racist, then you have to believe that every black person is dumb. Then you have to believe that every black person in jail is guilty. And we know that's not true. So as you go about your day and about your week and about your month and years ahead, I want to challenge you to handle the police a little bit differently and see what responses you get. I'm going to give you one more police story that was absolutely true, just to kind of give you a little more perspective on what I'm getting at. I was in Washington State and I was speeding. I was going 50 miles per hour in a 35. 15 miles per hour was the speed limit. I was going to a comedy show. The cops pulled behind me, whoop, 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 pulls me over. And he said, hey, do you know why I pulled you over? And I was like, no, I thought the speed limit was 50 miles per hour. I said, I don't know why you put me over. I didn't do any illegal turns. I wasn't speeding. He said, oh, you wasn't speeding. I looked at him like, no, sir. Like, I wasn't speeding. He said, so what's the speed limit? I said, 50 miles per hour. He said, yeah, you was going 50 miles per hour, but the speed limit is 35 miles per hour. And I was dressed up. I was going to a comedy show. He gets my license and registration. He comes back. He said, hey, do you have any weapons in the car? I said, yes, I do. I told him that I had a gun right here in my door. But once again, my hands was on the steering wheel. Now, in D.C., I was taught we went to a community center. They actually showed Black teens how to handle the police. And one of the things is, regardless where you are in the car, the driver has his hands on the steering wheel. The passenger up front has their hands on the dash. All the passengers in the back have their hands on top of the cushion of behind the driver and passenger. So the police officer, when he shines light, he can see everybody's hand. This is the way we taught. Should we have to do this? No. But we understand the climate and environment that we live in as Black Americans in this country. So you have to do what you want to do in order for you to survive and live. Nonetheless, he said, okay, that's a nice weapon. He told me that my gun was a nice weapon. He said, sir, I see you haven't been pulled over in 12 years. Or you haven't had a ticket in 12 years. I said, yes, I just, follow laws or I don't get caught. And he started laughing. He said, well, I'm going to let you off on a warning. This posted speed limit is 35. Totally different than the other cop who racially profiled me. I actually broke the law. But he understood that I thought it was something different. And take, for instance, if he was racist, he would have gave me a ticket. If he was racist this is from my perspective, in my opinion, if he was racist, he would have talked to me differently, because another incident in Washington State, I was speeding and a cop on a bike literally knew this speed trap area. And he pulled over 3 cars. Like, you pull over, you pull over, you pull over. He came to my vehicle. He said, boy, why are you speeding? I said, boy. He said, oh, we're going to go through this now, are we? I didn't know what he was talking about. But he called me boy. He was an older cop around in his mid-40s. So he knew, okay, he had to know what that meant. Nonetheless, I took control of myself, my actions, my words. I said, you know what? This is not the time for me to teach a cop a lesson. Like, hey, you should not be going around calling Black people boy. He was angry for some reason. I simply took that ticket, went to court, told him I wasn't speeding. He didn't show up. I didn't pay the ticket. But the point I'm making here, what if I would have went on about him calling me boy, which was very disrespectful, was very belittling of him to do that. But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. If you have family and you have friends and you understand the perspective that I'm giving you, then I want you guys to think with home in mind. That's what I want you to think of. Now, the police, especially this year, the spotlight has been on them. They understand that America is standing up for themselves, especially Black Americans. But believe it or not, there's still a lot of us that is being brutalized, being beaten, and being killed, even after George Floyd. See, that got national and also worldwide attention. But that doesn't mean that it's going to stop. The only narrative and perspective that I'm giving you guys is that when your local police stations have an open house, I don't know what they exactly call it, or a town hall meeting. I know some of them have town hall meetings about certain issues that's plaguing the community, go to these community and town hall meetings. See, black people, we steer away from stuff like that. But if you notice, white people always go to stuff like that. They go to the neighborhood watch. They do all of the things, but we steer away because we have fear of the police. We have fear that they instilled in us, but we have to fight against that natural fear of the police to close the ranks of understanding and comprehension of our people with non-black police officers. Because if you notice, there's not a large conglomerate group outside of college of Asians and whites talking and interacting with black people outside of college and business. Outside of college and business, there's not large, diverse communities or groups that you'll see. Usually you see a group of black people, usually see a group of white people, usually see a group of Asian people. Usually you see a group of Hispanic people. Now you'll see some people here and there that are mix and mingle, but for majority of America, we're all segregated, right? Even though they desegregated the nation. And I'm not saying go out and make white friends and Asian. No. You hang out with who you ever want to hang out and feel comfortable with. I am talking about police and law enforcement in general. That in order for us to diffuse their tactics and the way that they handle and talk to us, I believe when they have neighborhood watch, when they have town halls and they have community centers, that police officers there, that we go and we engage and we let them know how we feel. Hey, you're over policing our neighborhoods, and the way your officers talk to us like we're stupid, like we're dumb, belittling, somewhat racist and discriminatory, racial profiling. We have to go out into those meetings when they have open doors. We shouldn't have to wait for George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery. We shouldn't have to wait for those things to go and engage with them, because guess what? It is what it is. Majority of law enforcement in America are non-white. Are non-black. It is what it is. Now, I believe there should be more hiring of those applicants who are qualified, non-discriminatory, of black police officers. We need more black law enforcement. We need more black law enforcement, because that's going to help the ease in tension when those white officers and Asian officers and white Hispanic officers interact with that black officer and he doesn't turn coon on us. He doesn't turn coon. He will help them to understand. She will help them to understand. Because if you notice, anytime we deal with police, whether it be you see it on TV, video, or just within your community, there's friction. So I know that a lot of people, when they was first watching this video, they probably wasn't really understanding this perspective and narrative that I'm giving you. But what I'm actually saying is that we need to actually talk to the police. I'm not saying randomly go up on the street and talk to them. I'm talking about those inviting gestures that a lot of police stations have around their cities, districts, and counties. You should go to. And when the opportunity presents itself for you to speak and talk, you can have a list of questions or statements that you want to tell them. Say, hey, listen, I will be real with them. Hey, I know some of you are racist and some of you are not racist, but these are for the non-racist cops in this police station. And teach them and help them to understand our culture, how we speak, how we walk, how we talk, our mannerisms, that every black person with dreads or plaits or cornrows aren't hoodlums or gangsters or thugs or drug dealers. We have to actually, unfortunately, teach our local law enforcement and our national local law enforcement these very easy things. I don't agree with the militarization of police officers. I have no idea why police officers in cities and some towns are driving around MRAPs. Those are military vehicles. I don't understand why they're all up in military apparel. Like I used to be a Marine and a soldier. Like, why are you guys wearing military clothing in a civilian city, in a civilian town? I digress. Now, a lot of police officers thought that defund the police was to abolish or get rid of the police. That's not true. Defund the police is basically saying, let's decrease their budget so these guys can't go out and look like the military. Now, do I agree with sensitivity training? We're human beings, ladies and gentlemen, regardless if people understand Black people or not. We're human beings. It should be very simple. If I do not have a weapon, then don't fucking shoot me. But anyway, there is, do I believe, let me leave you with this. Do I believe that have there been white police officers that are not racist that have shot and killed an unarmed Black person? Do I believe that ever happened? I do. 100%. I believe there's been some white officers out there who shot and killed an unarmed Black person out of fear, and I'm not giving them a pass. I know some of you are uproaring, you're like, oh no, hell no, you gotta be. I believe that other officers, just like your friends and your family, persuade you, change the thoughts in your mind about certain things. Because if you have partners around, I want you to think about this. If you have partners and friends around you all the time telling you that every white person was racist, did you know that you will probably start thinking that every white person is racist and they got a different angle? They're trying to either take advantage of you in some sort of way. So picture racist police officers intimidating, influencing, and persuading non-racist police officers that all Black people are criminals or all Black people carry a gun and that they will kill you. So you got to kill them before they kill you. Who does anybody understand what I'm getting at? Have you ever been afraid of something, or have you already had your biases or stereotypes about something, not based upon your own experience, but somebody else's? Somebody projected and injected those thoughts inside your mind and they stayed with you. And then when a certain situation occurred, you act out of response of what they told you. Anybody? Think about that. Because I know that has occurred. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, protect yourself. Understand that I am not a police officer, never been, don't have friends that are police officers. So this is coming from a just total out in the blue thought that I had today that I really had to get off my mind and give you guys this perspective so you can get just a little bit more information about how to not only handle yourself with the police, but possibly to understand that they really don't know us. And I know some of you are going to say they really don't care to know us. That's both true and untrue. I don't believe anything is 100% all what you think about it. Have you ever thought about some people, they believe that everything they say is 100% true, which that is not true. There's at least two sides to every story. And I'm just telling you to conduct yourself in situations that may cause you harm. Understand the things that make you tick, understand the things that make you upset, and take a moment and take your breath before you have yourself in a situation, all because of the way you reacted. Even though I know it's unfair, but as Black people, again, we understand the environment and climate that we live in. So some of these pointers I gave you about how to handle the police and understanding the police, I hope it helps you as it has helped me. I'm quick to listen and I'm slow to anger, because I feel myself rising up every now and again when the police is racially profiling me. But I have to catch myself and take a breath and like, is it worth it? Regardless if I can get him fired from what he's done, is it worth getting my ass whooped or worth getting my ass killed? And that is a question you must ask yourself. If it's worth it, then do as you please. But for me, I want to go home to my family. This is Financial Literacy 101. Learn money and be inspired. And most importantly, understand how police operate, especially when they're non-Black. You guys have a great night. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 8:30, 9:30 Central Time. I'm out.